Hello, welcome back to the Quantum Mystic Podcast. I'm Jane Bear with my co host, Lisa Campion. We're happy to be here with you. And today we're talking about something that most people carry, which is not guilt, not regret, but shame. And this is the kind that lives in the nervous system, the kind that really teaches us to stay quiet, stay small, stay agreeable just to feel safe. And we're going to talk about how shame actually takes root in the body, not just in the mind. Um, there's like silent agreements we make with pain in order to really belong, whether in our family and society, and what it really means to speak truth. So, not truth not to be validated, but really we want to find freedom. This conversation isn't about oversharing or even emotional performance. It's really we're going to talk about how to liberate from shame and reclaim the parts of ourselves that learned silence in order to survive. And if you've ever felt like there's something inside of you that just wants to be expressed, but you learned it was safer to really swallow it, this episode is for you. So we're going to talk about shame, silence, and speaking the unspoken. And,
That's what we like to do on this podcast, isn't it? We like to talk about
speak
things
the unspoken.
people don't want to talk about.
Things people don't want to talk about and things that we almost don't admit to ourselves, right? And this conversation, I feel like, lives as sort of at the intersection of psychology and spirituality and really just human experience. Um, and we want to talk about reclaiming life force because shame can really lock us up. And like I said, it's locked away so deep that I've seen this. I've seen shame almost more than anything in lifetimes that gets carried over from lifetime to lifetime. So welcome back, and let's get going.
Such a good topic, and we want to hear from you. If you're listening, please jump into the comments and just let us know that you're here, just so we don't feel like we're talking to ourselves. Although that is really fun.
Although we can do that too.
Yeah, we can do that too. That's fine, but we'd love to hear from just where you're from and if you're listening. And I was thinking, Jane, about that sort of hierarchy of emotions that David Hawkins has in his incredible book, Power versus Force, and that shame is at the bottom. It's the most sort of toxic, the most dense of all, worse than hate, worse than fear, worse than it has more damaging to the body. It has such a corrosive, I think, energy to it because shame, it's different from guilt. Guilt is like when you feel bad for what you did. And sometimes guilt can be part of having a really healthy conscience, like sometimes we need to feel the sting of, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Helps us keep on track. But shame is really so much more toxic because it's hatred or rejection of the self. I did something bad, but I am fundamentally bad. And, my generation came, from so much shame-based parenting, shame-based teaching, I remember being little and having I couldn't do the multiplication tables because I was so dyslexic. And my teacher made me stand in the corner with the dunce cap, literally the dunce cap on.
Oh my God.
No, it was the 70s. Oh my God. It was right after a few grades before they hit my left hand with a ruler for being left-handed. Also, so I think so many of us just swim in a sea of shame, and I think if you have trauma, childhood trauma, sexual trauma, then we just layer that on top of that, because even though we have been victim of trauma, shame is sort of what we feel, even though cognitively we might know it wasn't our fault. But people who have been assaulted or molested or attacked often feel tremendous shame. So there's Dr. John Bradshaw. He's sort of an old school psychologist, he talked about toxic shame, as opposed to shame, which is shame and guilt, which are meant to keep like part of your conscious telling you what's right and wrong, and toxic shame, which is sort of imposed upon you from these really dysfunctional sources from the outside.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's also interesting because I feel like when we're kids, there could be just a misunderstanding, or like a small conversation or rejection, and it just hits in that like really tender, soft, scared part of ourselves that already feels like lacking or fear, and
Yeah,
and the shame can just stay in the nervous system. It just stays in the body, and over time, we feel like, "Oh, it's not safe to be myself." And
yeah,
over time, that just it forms in the body as like, these blocks or these energetic blocks, or it starts to, you know, it can shorten our breath. It can like muscles can become tighter and brace, and over time, the contraction becomes just like this familiar way of living. And then it filters into our lives of like this background,
mm,
like self-monitoring and self-protection. And so it's really incredible. Like it could be something traumatic, and it could be something so tiny, because I've seen all of it. Um,
yeah.
and really not, and the truth is it's really not ever what you did, and not even what happened. It's not who you are. But we take shame as, like you said, there's something wrong with who I am.
Yeah, it's so interesting that paralyzing quality. I feel like shame, especially toxic shame, has like a paralyzing quality to it.
Mhm,
And in Dr. Bradshaw's book, which is called Healing the Shame That Binds You, he
mhm.
talks, it's a fantastic book. It's old school from the 80s, but still worth a good read. He talks about that um the paralyzing binding effect that you were talking about. I don't He was talking about it from a psychological perspective, but I really, really appreciate your point about the physical aspects and how when we feel shame, there's like that nervous system paralysis,
Yeah.
that happens, right?
Yeah, it like embeds into our bodies, and not even as
Yeah,
a thought. It's not even a thought form. We might not even be aware of it, but it's like how we posture towards life. It's like a
yeah,
it's like a disconnection from our own vitality, honestly, and ultimately can be affect everything.
yeah.
And want to say hi to Lisa. Thank you from LA. Thank you for joining us from LA. Um, yeah, so, shame especially is like you said, it's so dense, and I think that that's why that emotion can really embed into the body so much, um, and why I don't know if this is true for you, but why I see shame, so consistently through lifetimes,
Oh,
when
yeah.
I'm working with clients and people, and healing this stuff. It almost always goes really far back.
Yeah, I think because in a way, like when we're doing past life work, if we have something we're ashamed of, it's almost like we don't forgive ourselves.
Yeah,
So we carry that burden through,
yeah,
like maybe we're trying so hard to work off our karma, and burn off our karma. And even when you paid off your karmic debt like 5 lifetimes ago,
yeah,
you're still dragging it with you
that's right.
through your lifetimes because we can't forgive ourselves,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And something, the topic is also about silence, which I think comes with feeling shame. We get quiet, right? We don't even wanna
Mhm.
talk about the shame. And excuse me. And, it's like internal agreements that we make. Like, if I don't name this and I just kind of push it down, I can belong. I can, like, people will accept me. Or if I stay quiet, I can stay loved. Or if I carry this burden all alone, I won't be a burden. There's all these things that are like the byproducts of shame, and I think silence is really one of them.
100%. 100%. I think what really helped me shift this in my life was working with Brene Brown's work.
Mm,
And she's done such incredible research and writing. And if you want to, go deeper into that, I highly, highly recommend her book. But in her research, she says that shame needs three things to survive: secrecy, silence, and judgment. And
yep,
the unspoken, things really show up in our throat, in the throat chakra, and in the way that we the way that we behave, and especially when it's sort of systemic, like it's part of your family, we can sort of protect the people who hurt us with our silence. So
yeah,
there's a silencing quality that comes with it. And she says, Brene Brown says that shame cannot survive being spoken when
mm,
it's met with empathy and compassion.
mm,
So for her, the cure, and this is what she recommends in all of her books, is speaking, speaking the shame to somebody is going to meet you with compassion and empathy, because it can't live with a voice and it can't live with compassion. So
that's right.
that's so incredible, right?
It is incredible, and so, it's like asking ourselves to be really brave, because, we make these silent agreements and, usually when we're really early or unconsciously, because, again, it could be from a past life, and then, it sort of flares up in this lifetime, whether with our family system or something that happens, um, and it's we're being adaptive, like these like agreements to ourselves to stay quiet are keeping us connected, um, and that connection actually ends up feeling more important than like being authentic to ourselves, and so because we're protecting ourselves, and but all of that stuff can all of that protection can create like emotional numbness and chronic anxiety and creative blockage and distance between in relationships and spiritual bypassing, like all this pain, it can come out in so many different ways. And like you said, it's like that pain doesn't dissolve because we ignore it. It really goes deep down into our subconscious and even our
Yep.
unconscious, shaping the choices from that part. And like you said, part of the healing is sort of gently, it's like a renegotiation, but it's always right awareness, like you said, it's like doing the brave thing and bringing voice, bringing light to those parts that feel like I might die if I actually say them out loud.
Yeah, totally. Love to hear from you. If you're watching along with us live, just drop a hello in the comments so we know that you're with us. It'd be cool to hear from you. And it's interesting too. Like I had this experience once of working with somebody with a pretty powerful lineage, history of childhood abuse.
Yeah.
And I could feel like the abuse pattern was in the room with us, like an entity,
Yeah.
it felt like a thought form,
Yeah.
or an entity. Sort of, I think about these things as kind of like the family demons.
Yeah.
And that part of it was about being silenced. Part of the package was to be quiet. And when you're in sort of the morphic field of that, even though your conscious mind isn't like, well, I shouldn't tell anybody. There's something about shame that makes us not want to tell people,
Yeah.
that's the silence. And it was so interesting because this person who was on my table, she's told me her story and told me it was the first person she'd ever told. And as she was speaking it, I could literally see this entity like disappear,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Um, so, so incredible
It's so
to
incredible,
be
and
there.
I'll give you a well, first we'll say hi to Wendy. Hi, thanks for being here. And I think
Mm.
Sarvana.
Hi, Sarana.
Hi. She says, "Can't believe I'm here. Opened my email 5 minutes ago, and here I am." Yes, so good to see you as well. Thanks for being here. It's always perfect timing. And I before I had language for all energy work, all of this, when I was a kid, I used to I grew up feeling like I had hands that were strangling my neck. Like it would get
Mm.
tight and it would feel like I was being strangled, but and there was no language for it. My parents didn't. I would tell my parents, they were sort of like, I don't know, and doctors were like, I don't know, there's no medical reason for you to feel like you're being strangled at this moment. But I mean, until my 30s, actually, until I think I met you. Well, before that, I started doing I was on my own spiritual path and doing inner work and learning how to use my voice. But truly, props to Lisa Campion here for her amazing work, and did some soul retrieval kind of stuff. And it was like a massive past life thing. And um through that work that she did, it was finally released, and it really was tied to shame. Like it was, and I had no idea. I lived through, I had strep, like multiple times a year, every year as a child. Like the energetics of that created physical issues. I had my tonsils out when I was in my early 20s. So it's just like, this is, and it's a big part of my journey to become a healer and to do this work, is because I saw that I lived through healing myself. And
Mm.
so I truly believe everything um, happens for our healing, ultimate healing. And it's just about, doing the work, chipping away at it, knowing that these are like breadcrumbs leading us to the thing, to the root. And that's just, so shame can feel like a huge burden, honestly. But when we learn how to speak that truth, right? The thing that actually happened, and
Yep.
it's not like a confession that something that we're bad and we're not performing anything. It's like truth telling as an act of our own sovereignty.
It's an act of liberation, really, like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's sort of, and that here, and I also think, Brene Brown's point on this is to make sure if you're going to do that, you are you're either having, if you're confessing to yourself, maybe it's a journal exercise. You just start with really like honest honest journaling. But you're going to meet yourself with compassion and empathy, because if you're met with judgment, criticism, then we sort of, the shame doubles down. And that's what happens, I think, when we go into a shame spiral. Let's say your inner child is like, I don't feel good about something. I made a mistake or whatever, and your inner critic is like, yeah, you did, you're terrible. And then the child feels more shame and the inner critic doubles down. Like, so when that happens, we go into the shame spiral. It just feels like we're, circling the drain there. It's so uncomfortable, so unpleasant, so damaging to our self, and so common. I mean, it's just super duper common to have a shame spiral. How do we get out of the shame spiral is when we have that conversation going on in our own head, that we, instead of meeting it with the inner critic, we meet it with compassion, empathy, sympathy, forgiveness, right?
Yeah. And if we're fully in the present moment, if we can really be fully in our bodies, then this work becomes much easier, because we're able to regulate our nervous system, as opposed to be in this like
Mhm.
heightened state of
Yeah.
most likely the past, which is going to be a state of depression or anxiety. Um, and, it's all about freeing energy that has been honestly held hostage, for our own safety. And when truth is spoken for liberation, it carries a different frequency. You know, it's
Yeah.
slow and clear and clean. And if we can, like truly we need to be in the present moment. We need to be fully in our bodies in order to do this, so that we can remind ourselves to come back out of that feeling of like, again, feeling like we're hostage to the shame or hostage to the story. And I think, it restores this internal alignment ultimately when we do this work.
100%. Yeah, Wendy says that she, um, was confessing some stuff and felt good to be heard and not judged by someone, and that psychic stuff can make her feel so alone. Sometimes she's an incredible psychic, Wendy is, and I hear that, Wendy. It's like all the things that we keep to ourselves that we don't think people will understand, that um, we feel ashamed of maybe the parts of us that are different or other people judge, reject. We can feel shame for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear that, Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, and when we sort of go back to the four agreements, the wonderful book of
Mhm.
the four agreements,
Mm,
we remind ourselves not to take anything personally, and that even can be from somebody who is, potentially the authority in the room, which might be like a therapist, and know that even their lens is going to come from their own stuff. And like, if we have that, our if we're fully in our personal power and have our own sovereignty, all those things that somebody might project onto us won't have a place to land. And so that's what we're working towards, right? Especially
yeah.
as like healed adults, we're working towards, like, okay, somebody was feeling their own shame, so they projected the shame on me, but there's nowhere for it to land in my energy field. So it just kind of the
Right.
energy moves along.
Right, disarming the inner critic and living in a more constant state of forgiveness and self-empathy, I think is really helpful, like, we're human, we make mistakes, it's okay to not be perfect, we, feel our way through things, that and we have when for me, it's like sort of like an emotional resiliency, like, I'm just more like, "Well, I am doing the best I can, and sometimes I screw up, and when I screw up, I fix it," and that kind of has been the antidote to shame for me,
Yeah.
so that I'm just more, like, trusting myself to forgive myself, so I think for me, it's been around forgiveness and this idea that, really embodying the idea that I don't have to be perfect.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and
I'm so much more forgiving of other people than I was of myself, right?
mm,
And that I think that's where, for me, the shame got really, trapped and then liberated was, well, it's
mhm.
I'm yep, isn't it funny? I make mistakes. Oops, that was a funny one. Like dropping my phone in the snow and then having a snowplow run over it, which just happened to me the other day.
It's like a
And
comedy
I was
act.
like, I know. I was like, "Really? That just happened?" And I could have been, like, all shamey about it, but instead I was, like, grateful, but in the miracle of somehow my phone still worked even though it just got run over by a snowplow. And it was kind of
And
funny, like, it was funny as shame spiral.
yeah, it becomes, and that's a more the lightness of being, and we're working towards creating spaces, in our bodies that, like, actually have more space
Mm,
for honestly, it's for about safety, right? We're learning to, um, create safety in our bodies, which means create safety in our nervous system, so that internally we're learning how to stay present with sensation instead of story. And this is like,
right.
I will talk about this until, I'm blue in the face. It's like listening to the body without trying to fix it or trying to transcend it or trying to push it down. We're
Mm,
allowing, and again, we can only do this in the present moment. So we're allowing emotions to move at their own pace with curiosity instead of judgment. And this, might externally mean resisting like any urge to interrupt or advise or spiritualize or rescue. It means really listening to like our own response without needing to change it. And this is authenticity. And when we do that, um, we're processing anything that comes in that moment, including shame. And I know, like, we've kind of through this conversation, when we're children, we don't have these tools. So I'm not talking about that. We're learning how to do this when we're on the healing journey. And we've learned how to, we've done some work to learn how to be safe in our own bodies, to create some nervous system regulation so that we can be present in our bodies. And
Yeah.
then when it comes in, we can sit with that. We can sit with those emotions and those feelings. And I just want to highlight, Sarana, I'm pretty sure I've been traumatized. I have traumatized my therapist. She is not at all in the peer review. I feel awful. She's confused and have Google things. Oh, yeah. Well, and she said I unloaded a lot of psychic stuff. Not everybody knows about psychic stuff. I mean, even my own, my originally when I was first attuned in Reiki, my teacher, who's absolutely brilliant, didn't know about psychic stuff. So, that sent me on a different path. So it's like, not everybody has their psychic turned on, and that's okay. And not everybody believes it. Right? And the psychic of all
100%.
psychics, Lisa, knows.
100%. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's
That's
okay.
all right. Yeah. Yeah, I think like I love what you were saying, Jean, about sort of letting the feelings and the energy flow through you in the moment. I've learned a lot about how to do that by hanging out with you, I have to say. And because that's I think your mastery, your like genius is in doing that. And I have more of a like tough it out, like rub a little dirt in it and walk it off kind of attitude about my, emotions. But but I think it's so important to learn to stop that habit and just be like, okay, I'm having a feeling and it's okay to have a feeling and I'm gonna let that feeling flow through me. How does it feel like in my body? And maybe I'll get some little movement. Maybe I'll shake it off, like literally jump up and
Yeah,
down or let it move through me. How does it want to move through me? It wants to go this way and then it's gone and I'm back into regulation. And I think doing that means it doesn't build up, right?
yeah,
Things don't accumulate and sort of build up and cause problems.
yeah, exactly. And so,
Yeah.
just as it's, anybody who's listening, all our listeners, just keeping that as the North Star when we're doing this healing work is to be able to get to a place where we can process emotions real time in the present
Yeah.
moment so that things like shame don't continue, but also so that things that are still there from past lives, because we wouldn't be here in human form if we didn't still have stuff to work out. So when that karmic stuff comes up and bubbles up to the surface, we are able to, calmly and gently and with curiosity and without judgment, allow those sensations and those thoughts and those feelings to come up and not have a complete shutdown and not push them further and all the things that we do again because it's this perceived safety mechanism, you know.
Mm,
Wanna-
yeah. And um, I'm gonna pitch the school now, but this is so much of the work that we do in the mystery school in the Quantum Mystic Mystery School. So
Yeah.
if you want to find more about it, quantum-mystic.com. We'll get you there. We'll be starting another cohort in a couple months. And this is kind of work that we're doing is really that peeling back the layers and coming into more and more authentic connection with ourselves, each other, and the universe. That's what we're all about.
That's what we're all about, expanding consciousness, because that's what we're here to do. 2026. Oh my gosh. 2025. What day is it?
Almost 2026.
We're close.
We're getting there. Yeah, and these types of conversations and this way that we have of looking at the world is what we're doing. So we just invite you to come along the journey and um yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me at lisacampion.com. Stop by, visit. I work with emerging psychic healers and empaths to help them fully open their gifts because I'm building an army of healers to go out there and save the world. Roar. Um,
Roar.
yeah, and Jane's amazing. Definitely you want to work with Jane.
And I'll direct y'all to my socials. At least Instagram is at the Jane Bear, and I talk about this stuff more on Instagram and Facebook. But find me there. You can find my website through there too. And I just want to shout out Wendy because this is cracking me up. I would love to join the mystery school, but I got commitment issues. That's so cute. Okay,
That's so cute.
we
If
can
you
we can work through
join
that.
the mystery school, we will help you work through your commitment issues, which might greatly benefit the rest of your life. I just wonder.
Yeah, that's so good. Thanks for that.
Oh, we'll hold your hand when you feel like running, Wendy.
That's right. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of doing it in group setting because you have each other to lean on and you have us to lean on and you're not doing it alone. And I feel like that's been a huge thing for the students in the mystery school. And we wouldn't be here talking about it and bringing it to the world if we didn't see that it actually works because it
Yeah,
does. And
it does.
that's what's really cool
Yeah.
and special, and we really believe in it. So great conversation, Lisa. Thanks for this.
Thanks. It's always so much fun, Jane.
Always so much fun, and see you all next time.